For college students to understand how to eat for your genes, you need to understand nutritional genomics. The human genome is a blueprint for over 20,000 different proteins. Proteins serve as structural components, hormones, and communication with the brain and the rest of the body. The genome is tightly regulated within the body, and factors that change this process are known as nutritional genomics. Nutritional genomics is the interaction between the components of the food you eat and the genome. Nutritional genomics is subdivided into 3 groups. Nutrigenetics is how an individual's DNA blueprint and the components in the food they eat interact to determine health. Nutrigenomics is how your DNA blueprint can turn on and turn off different functions in the body when you eat or don't eat certain vitamins and minerals. Nutritional epigenomics is how your DNA blueprint can actually change itself when you eat or don't eat certain vitamins and minerals.
Yes, my father's side of the family has heart disease. My grandma has diabetes.
My dad's dad has heart disease, and my mom's dad has diabetes.
My grandfather has high blood pressure.
College students should be aware of any disorders or conditions their parents or grandparents have because their genes get passed down to them. You get half your genes from your mom and half the genes from your dad. The genes you get from your parents can either be dominant or recessive. This means they can either show up or not. For example, if your mom has blue eyes and your dad has brown eyes, you will have brown eyes because that gene is dominant. This also works with inheriting disorders. Inheriting disorders can be understood once gene variations is understood. Gene variations is the study of nutrigenetics, which is one of the subdivisions of nutritional genomics. Gene variations are focused on SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphisms. Although this word is pretty daunting, it can be broken down pretty simply. SNPs can change unique DNA blueprint, which can change which protein is produced. Your DNA blueprint is a line of specifically ordered bases, and if one of the bases are changed, then a different protein will result. The genes you get from your mom and dad will indicate where or if a SNP occurs in your DNA blueprint. The different protein the SNP resulted in has implications for things such as altered metabolism for specific nutrients and cancer risk.
There's definitely a lot less time to put into thinking about eating. Snacks. I eat a lot of snacks in between classes.
It definitely makes it worse. I probably eat out more than I would.
Oh, it's terrible.
When kids go to college, they have a lot of new freedoms. For the first time in a lot of their lives, they can decide when to go to bed, when to wake up, and what to eat. For some, this means choosing between cafeteria options, and others, this means grocery shopping on their own or eating out, which most of the time is on a very low budget. Many of these options are loaded with sugars, sodium, and unhealthy fats. Some kids take this as an opportunity to eat healthy foods, while others take this as an opportunity to eat highly processed, prepackaged foods like ramen noodles, mac and cheese, and frozen dinners. Research is starting to show that a mixture of your genetic makeup and what you eat can increase or decrease the risk of certain diseases. One study shows that participants with a gene that encodes a pro-inflammatory response or swelling in certain parts of the body have a higher chance of developing metabolic syndrome, increasing the risk of developing heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. But this increased risk of developing metabolic syndrome was only present if the intake of polyunsaturated fat was low. Polyunsaturated fats are healthy fats found in things like avocados and olive oil.
The Finnish diabetes prevention study examined the extent to which lifestyle can affect if prediabetes changes into type 2 diabetes. There were two groups of experimental subjects. The experimental group was told to eat a nutrient-dense diet including apples and avocados and to exercise. The control group was told to continue their lifestyle of eating low-nutrient foods, including fries and candy, and limited exercise. The experimental group had a significantly lower chance of developing type 2 diabetes, while the control group had a significantly higher chance of developing type 2 diabetes.
Not yet. Sometimes. From the classes I've learned about like sustainability and stuff.
Probably. Sadly, I drink way too much pop.
Going back to the proteins we discussed earlier, we learned that these can be affected by their environment, and this can include the influence of nutrition. We grow up understanding that smoking while a woman is pregnant is bad for the baby. We also know that drinking while a woman is pregnant can harm the baby. But what about people who aren't pregnant? Do they have an influence on their children before they're born? There have been studies that prove that malnutrition in fathers can affect the health of their children later in life. Another study found that in fathers, a high-fat diet impaired the offspring's tolerance of glucose and insulin. All of these different habits could pass down poor health effects to your future generations. For example, obesity has been shown to have a clear link to genetics through multiple studies. These genes could be involved in metabolism, appetite regulation, or energy storage. As students in college, right now you're probably not thinking of wanting to have children. This may not seem too important to you, but throughout your entire life you can be making changes that will affect you and your future generations. Changes in gene expression can be passed from one generation to the next through environmental factors or health changes. These can be things like environmental chemicals such as radiation, diet and nutrition changes, stress, or even viruses. All of these have the possibility of affecting future generations. What we consider our normal individual patterns may come from environmental exposures of our previous generations. These mechanisms can be influenced from nutrition and other environmental factors during fetal stages or stages of infancy, but can also be influenced throughout our entire lives. The human genome has thousands of different proteins that can be structural components, hormones, neurotransmitters, and cell signaling. All of these can be changed through nutritional genomics, which is the interaction between the components of the food you eat and your genome. This can change depending on what foods and nutrients you consume. In college, with the newfound freedom, it's pertinent to know the benefits and consequences of what foods you put into your body. When discussing genes, we should be aware of any disorders or conditions our parents or grandparents have because the genes from their parents are passed down to them and eventually to us. It may not seem relevant, but in reality, even the small decisions we make now can affect us in our future generations. Malnutrition, high-fat diets, and obesity have been linked to genetics and can be passed down to our future generations. All of these small decisions we have can have a big impact on your life and your children's lives, so maybe we should let our genes decide what we put in our grocery cart.
We can